Hi, welcome to Chapter 9 on inflation. We're going to talk a little bit about how to calculate inflation. We're going to talk about how we measure the change in the cost of living because of inflation, a little bit about the patterns of inflation over time, and then some of the benefits or challenges to inflation and maybe some limitations that come from it. So the calculations here may be a little confusing, but this is not hard math and you can always use a calculator. We're going to look at this first one right here before we get to the first blue line. And what they're saying is you have three things: hamburger, aspirin, movies. Remember, we keep things simple, so we just have those three things. We bought 20 hamburgers at $3 each, so 20 times 3 is 60. One bottle of aspirin at $10, so 1 times 10 is $10, and 5 movie tickets at $6 for 30 bucks, and that totals our $100 spent. $100 is nice because it makes percentages easier to start with. And this is in paid one or time one. Remember, those numbers are kind of like time stamps. So then we get into time two, usually a year later, we'll say. And all of a sudden the price of hamburgers instead of $3 is now $3.20. Aspirin at $10 is still 10, and movie tickets at $6 are now $6.50. We still buy 20, we still buy one, we still buy five. And so 20 times $3.20, $64. One bottle times $10, still 10. Five times the $6.50 for our movies tickets gives us the $32.50. Total amount we spent for those items this year, $106.50. And to find the percentage, you take the difference. So this minus this would give you $6.50 divided by the original amount, and that's how you get 6.5%. And I'm going to show that on the next slide. So in time three, again, a new time, now the price of hamburgers has actually gone down. Maybe cheese has gotten cheaper, or there's been more cows, or we found um, the Impossible Burger, and so the price of burgers is dropped to 3.10, still $10 for aspirin, but movie tickets have gone up again now to $7, and we multiply them by the same amount that we bought each of the other years, and we get a total of $107 spent, and we'll call this year three. Now we're comparing the difference from year three to year two. There's only a 50-cent increase, and we would divide that by the original amount, and we'd end up with a very small 0.5% inflation rate. And then they do it again for the fourth one. So this is the formula. This can look really intimidating if you don't love math. I'm a kind of a math guy, or at least I was back when I was your age. So they're just saying whatever the inflation rate is, they've given it this little symbol pi just to make it more confusing. I wish they put a piece of pie and that would make me hungry. But the inflation rate is what this little pi symbol represents. And they're saying whatever the consumer price index at the time that you're looking at minus what it was at one time ago, usually 1 year ago, divided by that number from 1 year ago times 100 will give you the inflation rate. And we actually just did that a few times in the slide beforehand. So this is the formula, but what we did, I explained on the slide before. And if you want, you can go back and look at it. So inflation is about a basket of goods, and I'll show you a little bit about what that basket of goods looks like and what it costs from 1 year compared to the next. And it does, sometimes we focus on what we call core inflation, where we pull out food and energy prices, because those can change pretty dramatically depending on weather conditions and other factors such as that. Um, the basket of goods is what a typical family might buy. So it's made up of these categories. The biggest one here is this blue: housing, a little over 41, almost 42% of everything we count to measure inflation is about housing. Food and beverages is another big category right here at 14.3% roughly. Another big one here is transportation. A lot of us will spend quite a bit of our earnings on our cars, buying them, keeping them maintained, insuring them, medical expenses. And so you can see what the basket of goods looks like here. There's some issues with using this consumer price index. That's what CPI stands for. And one of them is that we don't, because we want to be able to compare year to year to year, the basket remains the same even if people start substituting away from a specific type of buying something. So if we move away from owning to renting in housing, if we move away from owning cars to using public transportation. So some of those things are not collected, they're not acknowledged when we majorly substitute what we do. A lot of people stopped buying laptops for a while. Now there's been a resurgence of buying them, but you could do a lot on your phone, and so people tried to operate without them more than they had in the past. So quality changes. Some things get better. My phone is better. My computer's way better than it was if I had my first laptop. I wouldn't be able to do this lecture with you just because of its processing capacity. Other things, though, I'd say get worse. I mean, the lawn tractors that I buy today don't last like they did when I was younger, or even more so when I was a kid and using my grandparents. So it doesn't take into account changes in quality. And then also, it doesn't do a good job of responding to us buying in new ways. So if we always look at the pricing at, say, malls or at the big box retailers, that's what we're going to keep doing, even if a lot of buying has shifted away to the internet. When you look at these slides, again, whenever you see a lot of notes, you should pause it and just read what they're telling you in A and B. What you'll see is this is the inflation rate for a good portion, almost 100 years of US history. And you'll see right around the time I was born, it really starts to kind of curve a little more steeply. I say that's because I must have done something to really change the economy. But really what happened is we came off the gold standard. By the way, I would not encourage us to go back on the gold standard. There's a lot of issues with it trying to keep gold around, but this is when all governments were able to start moving away from just printing money based off the amount of gold they have to being able to print money or create new monies like we did during this pandemic by coming up with a $3 trillion stimulus. We couldn't have done that if we were on the gold standard. And I would say while prices have increased more dramatically, we also have seen better health, longer life, less poverty. So that inflation has not come at the cost of quality of at least our economic living. And then you can kind of see the inflation rate in the US bouncing around from year to year. So it doesn't always go up. There are years that it's dropped or gone down. This is during the Depression. This is during the 2009 recession. Looking at four big economies, they're not all of the biggest in the world. We would put China in there, India in there to help kind of collaborate the story today, but the shape of these you'll see follows one another. So what I would highlight on this is that developed countries, inflation, deflation, more stability, kind of their inflation rates being high or low, follow one another. There are some really unique experiences of hyperinflation, very fast growing inflation. I'm going to show you an example of something that's been happening recently in Argentina, but there's other historical examples. I had a student who couldn't fly back to study from Brazil one year because plane prices had increased by 30% because of inflation and needed to wait and find a cheaper deal to be able to get back and study. Um, but today, Venezuela is still experiencing hyperinflation, and in 2018-19, really high as a million percent, some of the projections and estimates. But you could go out and take this pile of cash here, 5 million bolivars, and buy 1 kilo, that's what this is, of tomatoes. That 5 million bolivar was about 76 cents, and I've seen Zimbabwe, for example, have to cut zeros off. I was in Romania and was getting $100,000 bills. Later, they joined the Eurozone and they were able to cut a bunch of zeros off those bills as they transitioned to the euro. This shows, and again, you should pause and read the bottom, but it's just looking at how have prices changed over time, and how does that reflect or respond to minimum wage. So while prices are increasing, so is the average amount of money that someone's making per hour. And as a result, even though prices are higher, it is not necessarily more difficult to buy those same things because we earn a lot more. If you were to talk with the business faculty here, some of them, their very first jobs, they were earning less than $1 an hour. My first job, I earned $3.15 an hour, where my son's first job, I think he's earning $12 or $14 an hour. So the effects of inflation, some of it's expected. We know that inflation's going to happen, and what is occurring is small amounts. It's part of what allows us to get wage increases each year. Those costs are, given the name menu costs, kind of the idea of just the cost of changing a menu at a restaurant or catalogs. But that expected inflation doesn't really disrupt our life all that much. We kind of expect prices to go up a little bit and on a lot of things, and we expect to earn a little more. That's kind of the standard expectation. But we're not always in a standard experience. Right now, we're in a pandemic, and so when you don't know that inflation is going to happen, right now we have more people out of work, and yet housing prices are increasing. More people out of work, yet the cost of buying stocks, ownership in companies has been increasing. The stock market has gone up. The cost of real estate, at least residential, has gone up. When that happens and inflation starts going faster than we expected, it really hurts those on fixed incomes, primarily the elderly on Social Security, but also savers. It makes all the money you saved worth less than it was. You can buy less with it. And lenders who are waiting to get their money back and now are getting it back at a time that it buys less than it used to. If you're a borrower, though, this can be a really good time for you because you are now able to pay those loans back with money that's easier to come by because everything's costing more and you have a lower interest rate, and you have likely more money coming through your hands to be able to pay that debt. And that's true whether you're the government, whether you're a business, or whether you're a household, a family like you and I. So your exercise for today is to pick a few of your favorite movies from different years. They should be separated by at least 5 years, but think about maybe 2 or 3 movies that were favorites of yours throughout your life, maybe different points of life. I want you to go online and you'll look up what was the earning at the box office for those movies. So you'd have that exact number, and then you'd get the consumer price index for each year, and you'd use that to determine which one made more money if they all had shown at the same time. And I'd like to see that list, and I'm curious what your favorite movies are. All right, until next time, take care.